3 spine-chilling true night drive horror tales, unexplained encounters that will haunt you forever. Sarah felt the weight of 1,000 fears pressing down on her chest as she wiped down the last table of the diner. The neon signs flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows that danced across the worn tiles. Just as she was about to breathe a sigh of relief, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. It was the school. Her youngest, little Alan, was sick. Panic surged through her veins. She needed to get home now. The familiar streets of Morrow Creek, once comforting in their predictability, transformed into a shadowy tunnel as Sarah sped down the roads. She glanced in the rearview mirror. A pickup truck was there, a ghost from her past. It belonged to Tom, her neighbor. Tom, with his kind smile and always too ready help. But as the headlights crept closer, a prickle of fear crawled up her spine. Was he really just following her home for a friendly chat? Or was there something sinister lurking beneath his seemingly innocent exterior? The more she drove, the heavier her heart pounded. She tried to shake it off. Maybe it was nothing. But then, each turn she took felt like some dark, twisted descent. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, whispering secrets about the man who once helped her carry groceries. Just like that, trust morphed into dread, sharp as a knife at her throat. Suddenly, her car sputtered violently, coughing smoke like a dying creature, before shuddering to a halt on the outskirts of town. Darkness swallowed her in an instant. The pickup truck pulled in behind her, the engine rumbled like a beast awakening from slumber. Stranded in silence, surrounded by suffocating woods, fear clutched her throat like a vice. She felt completely naked against danger. Before she knew it, she flung open the door and sprinted into the trees, branches clawing at her ankles, snapping in protest. She could feel him behind her. He was there, hunting. Breath hitching, adrenaline racing, Sarah darted into an old cabin looming ahead, a relic from whispers of forgotten folklore. Would she find refuge inside? Or would it become her tomb? Inside, darkness loomed like a predator. Dust danced in the beams of moonlight filtering through the shattered windows. Fear coiled in her stomach. The stories she dismissed as children's tales resurfaced, myths of vengeful spirits that claimed those who preyed on others. They had always seemed ridiculous, but now they curled around her sanity. The door creaked, giving way to the familiar silhouette of Tom, mismatched with the familiarity and warmth of their neighborhood. His eyes glinted in a way she'd never seen before. It wasn't kindness, a glimmer of something far more wicked. As he stepped into the cabin, their eyes locked. In that charged instant, Sarah knew this was a battle for survival, a reckoning steeped in the haunting history of Morrow Creek. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Heart racing, Sarah turned on her heel. The cabin held untold secrets, a dark past waiting to spiral her further into nightmare. And as she fumbled through the darkness, the whispers of the woods sang a chilling chorus, urging her to confront the truth. Could she escape Tom's clutches? Could she protect her children from a fate worse than death itself? A rush of foreboding coursed through her veins as she braced for the unimaginable. What would she uncover amidst the haunting legacy of Morrow Creek? The air grew thick around Sarah as she struggled to catch her breath. The shadows played tricks on her, twisting shapes into lurking threats. Tom moved closer, his footsteps deliberate, each one echoing with the weight of dread. In a moment of frantic inspiration, she dove behind an old, battered couch, hoping the dust and darkness would conceal her. She could hear him breathing. Slow. Methodical. It was tauntingly calm. Her heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the silence that filled the cabin. What had changed him? The kind neighbor she'd known was gone, replaced by something malevolent. Sarah, his voice slid through the air, slick and cold. You can't hide from me. I just want to talk. Why couldn't he just leave her alone? Her mind raced with possible escape plans, but dread stalled her thoughts. The stories ran through her mind again. Tom was no longer just a man, he was the specter that haunted her, blending with the tales woven into the very walls of Morrow Creek. Please, she whispered, barely above a breath, grasping for courage. Just let me go. Tom chuckled, the sound grating as it filled the dark corners of the room. Let you go? After what those kids did, after what you did? You think I'd let you run? He took another step, shadows writhing around him, distorting his figure into something grotesque. With a sudden burst of adrenaline and instinct, Sarah rolled out from her hiding spot, crashing into the frayed floorboards and scrambling toward the back door. It creaked as she swung it open, revealing the night, cold and unforgiving. But freedom lay beyond that threshold. Sarah! Don't run! He shouted, fury now threading through his voice, dread rising in her stomach like bile. She didn't look back. Instead, she plunged into the night, her feet pounding the earth in a reckless flight, branches brutalizing her skin. The woods engulfed her, darkness intertwining with the tortured cries of the night. She could hear Tom's footsteps behind her, relentless and infuriated. His laughter echoed like a twisted hymn, mocking her fear. Caught in a labyrinth of trees, she risked a glance back, and her heart dropped. He was closer now, gliding through the night as if he was a part of it. The moonlight fell across his face, illuminating the twisted smirk twisting his lips. Fear paralyzed her, but survival instinct kicked in hard as she spotted the rusty old truck parked at the edge of the woods, its headlights still flickering weakly. She dashed for it, praying with every step that it wasn't as broken down as it looked. Cold dread surged when she finally reached the door, flinging it open and finding the seat empty. It was a ghost of a vehicle, but desperation clawed at her, and she fumbled for the ignition. Nothing. A frenzied laugh tore through the silence of the night. She slammed her hands against the steering wheel, wishing it would magically roar to life. But when she looked up, Tom was standing there, basking in the light of the moon, the devil in disguise. Did you really think you could escape? His voice was calm, an eerie contrast to the chaos around them. She was trapped, hemmed in by terror and doomed desperation. The last shred of human instinct fled as he stepped closer. You really should have stayed home with your children. Panic flooded through her as she realized the door was locked. But then she saw something out of the corner of her eye, movement in the dark. A figure emerged, shadowy and indistinct. Was it another predator? Or could it be her salvation? Sarah's breath hitched. Who or what was lurking just beyond the threshold of desperation? Let us see how this ends. Tom's words pierced the air, more sinister now, and the looming figure shifted, sending her heart racing into a new, paralyzing fear. What awaited her beyond the tree line? The shadows shifted once more, and Sarah strained to see the figure that had stepped from the dark. Heart racing, she held her breath, desperate for hope, but expecting the worst. Tom's amusement fed off her fear, his eyes flickering with a cold delight. Look who's come to join the party, he sneered, not taking his gaze off her. The figure lingered, seemingly locked in its own abyss of uncertainty, a silhouette against the pale moonlight. As it took a step closer, a chill rushed through Sarah as recognition pierced her confusion. It couldn't be Emily. Sarah gasped, the name slipping from her lips like a prayer. Her sister, taken too soon. Emily stood there, her expression blurry between disbelief and defiance. It was as if she'd wandered from some other plane, a haunted reflection of the girl that used to laugh with her. Sarah! She called, voice cracking, fear slicing through the night. You have to get away from him. Tom's laughter echoed again, a rasping harmony. Such a touching family reunion. But it's time to choose, isn't it? Either you stand with me, or she. He let the word hang in the air, sinister and loaded with threats. Panic surged through Sarah. Emily, please. You shouldn't be here. Don't listen to him. Emily shouted, her eyes wide with desperation. We can get out of this together. Focus on me, Sarah. Sarah felt torn. Tom's dark influence loomed like a storm cloud, while Emily, flickering and faint, had power over her heart. Just run. Sarah shouted at her sister, knowing the danger was closing in. The world closed around them, branches creaked ominously overhead, whispering secrets of the lost. Tom seemed to revel in the chaos, slowly making his approach, an adverse tide gaining strength. Too late, Sarah, he taunted. You think she can save you? Look at her. Tom pointed at Emily, who now appeared to flicker more like a candle than a solid form. A desperate choice lay heavy in the air. Sarah felt time grinding to a halt. Emily. Can you help me? No. We can't trust him. Emily pleaded, tears spilling down her ethereal cheeks. He wants to pull you into the darkness, just like he did to me. Sarah's heart twisted with agony, caught in a web of love and dread. But the voice of reason began to sharpen. Emily was hardly there. The shadows of the woods loomed large, the chill of death clinging to Tom's laughter as he stepped closer. Your time is up. He roared, lunging forward, dark tendrils unfurling from his form, reaching out for her. Sarah screamed, adrenaline pumping as she grasped the door handle, the metal cold against her trembling hand. She had to get away, but the choice between her sister and her own survival gripped her tight. Then, in a single frantic motion, she pulled the door open and lunged toward Emily. The wind howled around her, drowning out everything else, and in that moment of desperation, Sarah felt herself being torn away from the bonds of reality. Suddenly, everything blurred. A gut-wrenching pull threw her back into the woods, and the world spun violently. The darkness cracked open, swallowing her whole, and everything vanished in a flourish of shadow. Panic flared, but she gasped when she found herself standing in the middle of an empty road, the sky choked with clouds, blinking in disbelief. A weightless silence pressed down around her, and she whirled around, heart pounding. Where are they? She whispered frantically to the newly fallen darkness. A crack of thunder echoed in the distance, the night seeming to hold its breath. She felt something behind her and turned slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. There, standing by the wood's edge, was Tom, his face contorted in anger, but just behind him, silhouettes flickered in and out of existence, her children. Sarah, they called in haunting unison, their voices layered with confusion and fear, edging toward the unknown. As realization crashed down on her, the road felt ever more suffocating. The night had only just begun to unravel its terrible secrets. What had she awakened, and would she be able to save them before it was too late? The air thickened, pressing against her chest as Sarah stood frozen, her heart pounding like a war drum. Tom's laughter twisted around her, chilling her to the bone. He stepped forward, and his shadow seemed to crawl, coiling around her feet like a snake ready to strike. Do you see them, Sarah? They're so close yet so far. Just a little further into the darkness, and they will belong to me, he taunted, grinning as if he'd just revealed a hidden treasure. Stop! Sarah shouted, desperation rising. Her children, barely outlines in the dim light, appeared frightened and lost, trapped between the two worlds in a way she had never fathomed. Mom, help us! They cried, their voices echoing like lost souls. She could practically feel their pleas gnawing at her heart. Every instinct screamed to reach for them, but the weight of Tom's presence held her back, a suffocating pressure like thick fog suffusing her senses. Don't listen. Emily's voice surged into her mind with warmth, a lighthouse in a tempest. You have to get away from here. We can save them. Sarah's head spun. Could she trust her sister? The ground beneath her felt unsteady, like quicksand. Each heartbeat pulsed with urgency, and out of sheer instinct, she took a step forward, but Tom's laughter sliced through the air. Such naivety, Sarah! He hissed, his voice smooth like ice. The more you step away from me, the closer they drift to this shadow-wrought fate. You think love will save them? Love doesn't exist in the dark. A flicker of doubt raced through her. Was he right? All those moments of joy, were they so easily extinguished? The images of her children, their smiling faces morphing into tears, pushed past the barriers of her mind. Fight it! A voice yelled from the shadows. Emily, like a ghost, seemed to shimmer, flickering in and out. Remember who you are. You are stronger than he is. Sarah gritted her teeth, feeling the weight of determination boil beneath her skin. I will not lose them. She screamed, anger igniting her spirit. The air crackled with energy as she rushed toward her children. But just as she reached for them, Tom charged, a dark blur of rage. His fingers, sharp and twisted, grazed her arm, and a jolt of coldness rippled through her body. She stumbled back, gasping, as an icy dread filled her veins. No! Sarah shouted, pulling herself back, grasping every memory that tied her to her children. Suddenly, the road shifted beneath her, the sky roiling like angry waves. Get away from her! Emily cried, lunging toward Tom, her form shimmering, fighting for solidity. Their two figures clashed, one radiant with love, the other at depths of darkness. Just then, the wind roared, swirling violently. It seemed to suck the light away, leaving only echoes of memories in the air. Sarah felt it, the weight of her family, the warmth of their laughter, even the mundane moments that stitched together their lives. They were stronger than Tom's darkness. When the shadows clamored, Sarah screamed, "No! I choose love!" With a furious cry, blinding light erupted all around her. She felt the tug of time and space, and everything collapsed into vivid color. In an instant, silence fell like a blanket. Sarah stood at a crossroads, one side plunged into darkness, the other into blinding light. Tom's cackling echoed mockingly, now far away, but his words lingered like a curse. You think you can choose, Sarah? The darkness is always hungry and it won't let go. As she took a deep breath, pressing forward, shadows spiraled behind her, swirling back into the woods. Would she grasp her children from the edge of despair, or succumb to the whispers of doom that beckoned her? With all the strength left in her trembling body, she stepped ahead yet again. Sarah's heart raced, every instinct screamed for her to turn back. But what awaited her on the other side would test everything she had left. The moment Sarah stepped forward, the ground felt alive, shifting and pulsating like a heart beneath her. She couldn't shake the feeling of unseen eyes watching her every move. The light grew warmer, almost suffocating, cocooning her in an embrace she desperately wanted to trust, yet shadows lingered at the corner of her vision, slipping in and out like restless spirits. Mom! The cry pierced the air again, her children's voices mixing into an anguished chorus. They were so close, yet the shadows held them just beyond reach, ensnared in a world that twisted reality itself. Stay strong. Emily's voice echoed in her mind, a flicker of courage preventing her from melting into despair. Gathering her strength, Sarah kept moving. Each step felt heavy, laden with the fear that Tom's laughter would drown her soon. As she edged deeper towards the light, an unsettling chill swept across her skin, a reminder of the darkness that loomed ever closer. It pooled at her feet, bending reality in ways that made her stomach churn. This is just a trick, a nightmare, she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. Suddenly, the warmth dwindled, and shadows surged. Dark figures materialized, faces twisted in torment, their eyes glinting like knives. They snarled, reaching out, fingers barbed, hungry for the light she was stepping into. Mom! Don't leave us! Sarah's heart raced, pounding like a drum in a fatal procession. She could see them now, clearer than ever, their faces flickering between fear and desperation, arms outstretched. Hold on! I'm coming! Sarah cried, tears spilling across her cheeks, glistening like shattered glass in the dim light. She extended her hands toward them, feeling a sheer wall of cold air push against her. No! Tom's chilling voice rumbled from behind her, wrapping around her spine like a vice. You belong to me, Sarah. They will never escape the shadows. The weight of his words sank deep. Her vision blurred, doubt clawed at her heart, creeping in like a parasite. What if he is right? What if I can't save them? Don't believe him. Emily shouted, her voice cutting through the haze. Remember the love. Remember the light. Sarah's resolve reignited. The warmth she felt was fading into embers, but she would not let it die. I will not be your puppet any longer. She shouted defiantly, pushing against the frigid wall trying to consume her. With each step forward, the darkness recoiled slightly, whispering threats of despair. The figures of her children wavered, their outlines becoming ghostly. Please, Mom. They pleaded, urgency sharpening their cries. Tom's laughter echoed, reverberating through the air like thunder. You think your love can save them? You will lose everything. Breathing heavily, Sarah pressed on, fighting against the curse of doubt. Each breath was a battleground of hope and despair. I choose love. I will save them. The ground surged beneath her, convulsing with energy. An explosion of light erupted around her, pushing back against the dark figures that crept closer, their tortured expressions melting away into screeches of anger, but as the blinding light enveloped her, it dissipated too quickly, revealing a new nightmare. She stumbled, finding herself in a twisted version of her living room. The walls pulsed, oozing darkness. Her children stood before her, but they were not quite the same. Mom. They murmured, their voices warped, echoing off the walls. Help us! Panic surged as she realized shadows tangled around their feet, pulling them down into something vile. Transfixed, Sarah felt a chokehold of terror. What happened to you? They melded back into the shadows, their features morphing into contorted faces. The laughter of Tom pierced through. He would not let her rescue them. Just a little more, Sarah, he crooned, darkly. They are already lost. Was it possible? Had her desperate zeal cost them everything? Just as she thought she could see a flicker of hope again, the reality shifted, and the walls began to close in. What fresh horrors awaited her? Would she find a way to reclaim her children from the grasp of darkness, or would she lose herself in the nightmare too? And the air, thick with dread, whispered a question back to her: would love endure, or would despair prevail? The walls closed in, tightening like a noose around her throat. Shadows danced, flickering against the warped surfaces, whispering secrets that clawed at her mind. The once comforting scent of her home twisted into something foul, a mixture of decay and dread. No. No. Sarah gasped, stepping back, her heart racing. Her children, they were still there. But now their eyes were pools of darkness, abyssal and void of any hope. Mom, save us! The voices were haunting, a dissonance of pain and longing. Each plea echoed off the walls, twisting like a knife, forcing her to her knees. Stop! Get away from them! She screamed at the shadows as if sheer volume could chase them away. But the shadows laughed, an eerie cacophony that sent cold tremors through her bones. It's too late, Sarah, Tom's voice cut through once again, smooth and taunting. He appeared, a smirk plastered on his face, the embodiment of darkness. They're almost mine. No. They're not yours. Her fingers clawed at the air, reaching for her children, fighting through the intangible barrier of despair that separated them. The room pulsed violently, as if it were alive, the shadows dragging her family ever lower, deeper into an unseen hell. Every grain of her being screamed for action. They had to be saved. She couldn't lose them to the darkness. She sensed the flickering light flicker within her, rekindling. Was it the love Emily spoke of? The light that could break this charade? Hold on. She cried, focusing all her energy on the flicker, willing it to grow. I'm coming. I want to let you go. The air crackled around her, a tension so palpable she could taste it. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in frustration. Their grasp on her children became tenuous. Sarah felt a surge of hope, the warmth of her love filling the room. She opened her arms wide, channeling everything she had into that light. But then they faltered, her children's faces flickering again. "Mom." They choked out, voices trembling, turning hollow as their forms twisted into shadowy facsimiles of themselves. "Sarah, your light can't hold them." Tom sneered, stepping closer. "They're beyond saving. Remember who they truly are now." With every taunt, shadows writhed, forming grotesque shapes twisting into figures of lost friends and family, into things she had buried deep in her heart. Memories threatened to spill from her mind, flooding her with grief. She fought back the tide, shaking her head violently. "They're not real. This is your trick." "Is it?" Tom's eyes glinted, dark and hungry. "You've lost so much already. What if I told you their true selves are buried too deep to find?" Sarah's heart raced as pieces of doubt slithered in. The images spun around her, forming a world of regret. "No. They are still there. Do you wish to find out?" He whispered, the shadows curling around her like smoke, suffocating her hope. She could feel it, the cold grip of despair tightening. The walls lunged closer, warping her reality. The laughter continued, echoing and distorting her thoughts. "Choose, Sarah." Tom taunted. "Your children, or your sanity?" "Both." She shouted defiantly, and with that cry, her heart ignited. Anger surged a primal roar in her chest. There had to be a way, but the shadows quaked, zipping in like a curtain drawn tight. "Time's up." Tom hissed. The walls pushed her, tightening with a sinister presence. She had to act. But how? Just then, a glimmer of light broke through the chaos, wrapping around her hands. Could it be the answer? Or another trap? "Will love save you?" the shadows hissed. "Or will it drag you down?" Terror clutched her throat. She had only moments left. Would she risk everything to find out? Or allow the darkness to consume them all? "Mom!" They screamed, their voices now tinged with desperation, making her choices heavier than ever. The air thickened, her fate hanging in the balance, the light flickering in tandem with her resolve. What would be the cost of her decisions, ticking away as heavy as the sound of her heart? The shadows gathered with an insatiable hunger, creeping around her feet, winding their way up her legs like snakes ready to strike. Sarah felt the chill penetrate her skin, seeping into her bones. The air grew stagnant, and she could barely breathe as the darkness coiled tighter. "Mom, please!" her children's voices broke through the chaos, echoing a desperate plea. They were lost, teetering on the edge of the abyss. She could sense them slipping away, their forms distorting into grotesque reflections of what they once were. "No!" she cried, shaking her head violently, trying to clear the terrifying images that filled her mind. She had to believe, had to cling to the hope that they were still there, waiting for her to save them. "I'm coming. I'm not giving up." There, in the flickering light pooled in her hands, she felt a surge of energy warm her, igniting the memories of bedtime stories, laughter, and love, the very essence of her children. With a fierce roar, she pushed forward, forcing the light to grow, to reach for her family. It burst forth, illuminating the oppressive darkness for a heartbeat, but the shadows hissed, recoiling from the light, and Tom's laughter rang out cold, mocking. "Pathetic. You really think it will save them? They're beyond your reach. Their true forms are lost forever. Only I have the power to set them free." Sarah staggered, doubt creeping into her chest like poison. What did he mean? Were they truly gone? She wanted to scream, to curse him, but the shadows were swirling around her, dragging her back into despair. Each breath felt heavier, suffocating her hope. A figure flickered at the edges of her vision, her daughter, Emma, reaching out. "Mom! Help us! We're trapped!" The illumination that briefly radiated from Sarah faltered, and fear clawed at her heart. "I'm here!" she shouted, struggling against the encroaching darkness, her voice cracking. "Just hold on." The shadows swirled and twisted, morphing into haunting silhouettes of children laughing, playing ghosts of innocence lost. How could this be real? This wasn't her family. It was a twisted illusion. Get away! She yelled at the faces of those she lost, their laughter turning into screams that echoed in her mind. Mom, it's cold. Her son's voice trembled like a fragile whisper. The words cut through her, thicker than the dark fog surrounding them. If she failed, they would be consumed, lost forever. Panic surged. Tom advanced, his smile a sickening mask of triumph. Choose, Sarah. Join them, or fight and risk losing your sanity. You can't have both. With a newfound fury coursing through her veins, a realization pierced the veil of despair. Love had to be powerful enough to cut through this darkness. She focused hard, drawing the warmth within, the flicker of light that still illuminated her soul. Enough! She bellowed, channeling all her strength into that flicker, weaving it into a luminous beam. The air shimmered, and for a moment, the shadows recoiled, shrieking like banshees in torment. Then, she sprang forward, racing toward her children with a renewed sense of purpose. I'm here. I'm coming. Her outstretched hands met the cool air, desperation boiling in her chest. Just as she thought she could grasp them, the shadows lunged, pulling her back with a force that felt like 1,000 chains. You can't leave! They shrieked, their breath icy against her skin. Mom! Their voices echoed again, twisting her heart. She focused her will, the light exploded into a blinding radiance, pushing against the shadows, forcing them apart like a knife through darkness. But just as victory seemed close, a blinding flash of doubt crept in. What if this light was just another trick, another way to lure her deeper into despair? The shadows pulsed, flickering violently, as Tom infuriated himself with rage. You think you can win? They're already gone. You'll never see them again. She felt the walls of the room shift again, closing in tighter, suffocating her spirit. Was this the end? Would her family be lost to the void forever? Help us, Mom! Their voices faded into soft whispers. Trapped behind a veil of terror. Please don't let us go. Sarah's heart raced, pushing against her fear, unwilling to yield. I won't abandon you. She cried. But as the shadows gripped her tighter, she wondered what if love wasn't enough. What if it led her straight into darkness? The pulse of energy flickered, and she was left wondering what really lay ahead. Would love save them, or would it tear her apart? A piercing scream shattered the silence. It cut through the darkness like a knife, and Sarah spun around, breathless. The familiar voices of her children morphed into anguished wails, reverberating against the cold walls around her. Each scream clawed at her heart, each cry pulling her deeper into the shadows. Mom! Emma's voice cracked, echoing painfully. Help! We need you! The flickering light from her hands dimmed, struggling against the relentless encroachment of darkness. Sweat pooled at her temples, and her fingertips tingled as if they were being drained of life. Fear gripped her throat. She could see the glimmers of her children, but they looked smaller, fading like an old photograph. Tom stood at the periphery, grinning, his eyes hungry. Do you feel that? He taunted, gesturing to the shadows swirling around her. It's your weakness, Sarah. They're slipping away because you can't let go of the light that blinds you. The truth is darker than you think. Shut up. She spat, grounding herself. The warmth of love flickered faintly inside her, a tiny beacon in the ravenous void. You don't get to speak about them. I will save them. As she spoke, the shadows recoiled, their twisted forms writhing as if in pain. But behind the facade of her determination, the cracks were widening. Could her love really pierce through this darkness? The second-guessing began anew, gnawing at her sanity. Suddenly, she felt a cold wind swirl around her, chilling her from within. Mom, it hurts. A new voice emerged, one that she couldn't recognize. It sent shivers racing down her spine, a jarring reminder that something was very, very wrong. What did you do to them? Sarah felt the words slip from her lips, laced with terrified desperation. Tom's laugh echoed, dancing through the heavy air. What did I do? I liberated them, my dear Sarah. They are no longer bound by your whims or your fragile human love. She recoiled. Was he telling the truth? Were they truly gone? If she failed, they would join the endless abyss of darkness, forever tormented and lost. A barbed wire of panic tangled around her heart, squeezing tighter. Enough of this. I want to listen to you. With every ounce of strength, she pushed the light forward, a defiant blaze that surged, momentarily stunning the shadows. The shrieks echoed in her ears, a maddening chorus of discontent. She forced her eyes to focus on her children, searching for the faintest hint of their real selves behind the shifting darkness. Feel this, Sarah. Tom shouted, the ground trembling beneath her. Embrace the shadows. You know they're calling. The grip of despair clutched at her throat, and for a moment, doubt seeped into her heart. Was she about to abandon her children? But a sudden flicker of warmth ignited within her. She called upon their laughter, their innocence, the sweet memories she cherished, weaving them into a shield. Here I stand. She shouted, summoning the light once more, and I will not falter. As the light surged forward, the darkness hissed and recoiled, but Tom stepped closer, a serpent ready to strike. You're only delaying the inevitable, he snapped, eyes gleaming. You can't escape the truth. The moment hung in the air, taut and trembling like a bowstring, poised to snap. Sarah concentrated, feeling the warmth glow brighter around her. Shadows danced chaotically around, the screams of her children rising into guttural howls. Suddenly, she felt a familiar tugging sensation in her chest, like a string being pulled taut. Their presence was there, like a dim beacon, but was it real? Or another cruel trick of the darkness? Make your choice. Tom bellowed, his tone dripping with malicious glee. Which will it be, your love or your sanity? Sarah's breath hitched, and she fought against the encroaching despair. Shadows clawed at her skin, but she would not yield. What if this was where love and nightmarish truths collided? Would she be strong enough to hold on to them? In that fractious moment, as the light and darkness clashed, Sarah felt everything hang in the balance. Would this battle reveal more horrors, or would it set her family free? The darkness churned around her, holding its breath as she prepared to unleash the final surge of light. But in that fleeting heartbeat, she pondered, what if the true horror was yet to come? Light poured from Sarah like molten gold, bright against the oppressive blackness. It chased the darkness, scattering the shadows like frightened rats, but every inch she reclaimed brought a fresh wave of dread. The anguished cries of her children pierced her resolve, deeper than any knife. Sarah's voice. Soft, trembling, almost melodic. It wasn't Emma. It wasn't Max. It was something else, something that twisted in her gut. She diverted her attention toward the sound, heart pounding, her mind racing. Help us, stay back. She shouted, forcing her will into the light that illuminated around her. But the voice grew louder, more insistent, weaving through her determination. It infiltrated her thoughts, whispering doubts like poison. Can you really help them? Tom laughed. It echoed, unsettlingly close. Or will your love lead to their ruin? Just as she turned to face him, the shadows lunged forward, and the light flickered, dimming under the weight of her fear. The warmth in her chest sputtered, struggling to keep its glow. Panic unfurled within her like a dark flower, budding with each incredulous thought. No! She screamed, her voice raw as she squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out Tom's laughter, trying to block out everything else. But the darkness persisted, murmuring twisted lullabies that had once belonged to her children. Images danced against her mind, her kids laughing, spinning in the autumn leaves, warm golden light kissing their cheeks. Lost in the echoes of those memories, she sensed the reality of the shadows lurking behind them. Mom. A whisper. Fragile and small, holding an ache that twisted through her soul. Emma. Sarah cried, ripping her focus back, desperate for clarity. She opened her eyes, forcing the light to gather around her, turning towards the sound with renewed vigor. "Help us, Mom!" the voices cried again, pleading, terrified. They were fractured, distorted, bleeding together as the darkness flickered like flammable liquid around her. "Let go!" Tom's voice roared, making the ground tremble beneath her. "Let them go. They belong to the dark now." "No." She could feel the warmth blossoming anew, pulling from her gut. Love surged as her heart raced, tendrils of light reaching out to grasp what was still hers, like lifelines thrown into a stormy night. The shadows writhed, contorting into monstrous forms, but she stood firm, lifting her chin defiantly. "I will not yield." But the black tendrils lashed out, approaching swiftly, ready to engulf her in their cold embrace. Her heart pounded as she saw ephemeral shapes of children, their wide eyes, the twisted grins. They were lost in both reality and nightmare, and the fear gnawed at her spirit. "Which is more important, Sarah?" mocked Tom, his voice dripping with a malevolent amusement. "Your love or your sanity?" A shiver crawled down her spine. Could love blind her? Would it cloud her reasoning? For a fleeting second, doubt seeped in. But the flicker of memories of her children snapped her back to focus. She lunged forward into the chaos, directing the light with furious intent. Just as tendrils of darkness brushed against her skin, a deafening roar erupted. The light surged one last time, flaring bright, illuminating the abyss. But as it burst forth, everything froze. She could see Emma and Max, so close yet infinitely far, trapped in the suffocating anguish of despair. "Mom!" they cried, reaching out, hands stretching into the emptiness. "Help us, please!" Terror sank its claws into her as the world spun. Shadows shrieked, the night was alive with their howls, and Sarah felt herself lost in the battle between hope and hopelessness. And then, silence fell like a heavy curtain, but from the silence, a new sound crept in, a slow, deliberate crack. It splintered through the dark, sending icy fingers down her spine. The cacophony had turned to whispers. They beckoned from all sides, calling her name with the weight of unspeakable promises. "Help us, Mom!" She turned to see the faces twist, merging into something grotesque, something terrifying. "Mom!" The whisper trailed off into eerie stillness, and Sarah realized she had only just begun to uncover the truth. Was it truly her family she sought? Or was it something darker, something waiting to pull her into the depths? The shadows drew closer, a merging tide of despair, thick and suffocating. The air grew heavier, tightening like a noose. She had prepared for the darkness, but was she ready for what lay beyond it? As dread washed over her, she braced for the next wave of horror. What ultimate truth awaited her just beyond the reach of her flickering light? The darkness pressed in around Sarah, suffocating and relentless, as the chilling whispers grew louder, echoing through the cavernous void of despair. "Help us, Mom!" they called, her children's voices twisting into wretched cries. A flicker of light pulsed within her, dimming under the weight of grief, yet refusing to extinguish. "No!" she gasped, summoning the last remnants of her strength. "I won't lose you." With sheer grit and determination, she pushed through the waves of despair, focusing on the light flooding from her heart like a sun breaking through storm clouds. It wrapped around her, warding off the encroaching darkness. Tom's laughter rang out, serrated and malicious. "Pathetic. You think your light will save you? You think love can conquer this?" His taunt lingered, sliding around her like thick fog. Shadows surged, creeping closer, seeking to swallow her whole, but Sarah wasn't the woman who had been cowed by fear. She was a mother, every fiber of her being craving the warmth of her children's laughter and the sacred bond that tethered them together. With conviction fueling her every heartbeat, she bellowed, "I choose love. I choose hope." Staring into the abyss, she felt the darkness pull away, as if recoiling from her fierce declaration. She extended her arms, the light radiating outward, illuminating the ghastly forms of her children caught in despair. "Emma! Max! Don't give in." She could see them now, their faces barely recognizable within the shadows, but she refused to acknowledge the distortion. Fight back. I'm here. I'm coming. The weight of Tom's evil pressed down harder, but the images of laughter, bedtime stories, and warm hugs filled her mind, swirling around her like a protective barrier. She envisioned her children running through sunlit fields, carefree and laughing, and each picture ignited her dimming light into a blazing inferno. Enough of your lies, she yelled, advancing into the darkness, faith surging behind her like a tidal wave. As her radiant warmth pushed through the folds of shadow, she imagined her children reaching out, their fingertips straining for her. Mom! They cried out, voices breaking through the suffocating gloom, and then, a crack echoed through the night, a shattering of glass, a rift in reality. The walls around them shattered, shadows melting away with each shard that fell, distorting Tom's victorious sneer. He screamed in denial, rage synthesizing with fear, as the shadows that had clung to him began to twist, unraveling like threads of a fraying rope. You can't escape. They're mine. His threat was hollow now, faltering as Sarah's light chased the darkness back into the void. Not anymore. She shouted, her voice rising like a phoenix above despair. Her children emerged, silhouetted against the light, their forms clearer now, closer. She sprinted toward them, ready to embrace them, to crush them against her chest, to remind them that love was their anchor, their home. Hold on, I'm almost there. She cried, feeling the weight of the dark dissipate into dust at her back. As she reached the edge of the light, she took one final breath and all at once pulled her children close. Their warm bodies met hers as the last traces of Tom and his shadows evaporated, leaving an echo of despair, but it didn't linger in her heart. With a soft gasp, they spun together until the light shimmered around them, bringing with it hope and warmth. Mom! Emma and Max cried, their voices bright with relieved joy. Never again, Sarah whispered, her heart swelling with love. In the aftermath, the world around them transformed. Sunlight flooded through the trees, and the green of Morrow Creek appeared more vibrant than ever. They emerged from the shadows, hand in hand, into a reality illuminated by warmth and possibility. Emily's spirit floated above them like a guardian angel, a soft smile on her face as she faded into the light. Together always, Sarah whispered, but this time, it was no longer a prayer, it was a promise. They walked home, the bond stronger than ever. Each light step marked their return, bringing with it laughter, joy, and the undying assurance that love could overcome even the darkest of nights. This was not just a victory, it was a reunion of souls that had faced despair and emerged forged anew, a testament that even in the bleakest hours, hope glimmers like cosmic stars waiting to guide the lost home. If you felt the weight of this journey, don't even think of leaving without taking action. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss out on more exclusive tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button, feed the algorithm. Flood the comments below with your thoughts and theories about this ending. And, I mean it, share this video with at least 5 friends who also need to dive into these stories. Don't wait even one more second. True fans show their support. Let's keep this journey rolling together.